Hey everybody, Matt here with an update about the podcast. Let me start by saying we had some truly great episodes lined up for you. Seriously. I talked with alumni whose careers range from making video games to running breweries. Each of them had a fascinating story about how they got there and what they learned along the way. It was great advice every time. Those episodes are ready to go, and I can't wait for you to hear them, but now is not the time for traditional career advice. We know that. We're living in a new normal, trying to flatten the curve. A lot of us are working from home now. We're balancing work with childcare. We're trying to figure out 4 different types of video chat so we can stay connected. I feel you. I'm recording right now at my kitchen table. My closest coworker is a dog who's getting tired of 4 walks a day. So, What the Job is going to shift gears a bit and provide you with episodes tailored to the times, starting with a few tips for working from home. Episode release dates might be a bit sporadic, but we'll do our best to keep putting out content that helps us all get through this difficult period. And since this is an alumni advice podcast, I urge you to take seriously the advice given by 3-time U of A alum Dr. Dina Hinshaw. Stay home, and if you must leave the house, practice social distancing by maintaining a 2-meter distance between yourself and others. And now, from the University of Alberta Alumni Association, it's What the Job. I'm Matt Ray.
Having the same space where you feel like that's where you're going to focus and work, it's helpful. It's just like when we go into the office, right? Our brain actually feels like, oh, this is the time to work and be with colleagues.
On this special episode, we're joined by the self-proclaimed work-from-home queen, Laurie Wang. Laurie works in communications at the U of A, but way back in 2005, she worked remotely from home before it was cool. Laurie talks about the importance of routine, setting up a regular workspace in your home, keeping in touch with coworkers while working remotely, and, of course, taking time for yourself. What the Job is made possible with the support of our affinity partner, TD Insurance. Did you know that through the TD Insurance Melishmonics program, University of Alberta alumni are entitled to preferred rates on car, home, condo, and renter's insurance? Save even more by bundling your car and home insurance. To learn more about how you can save, please visit tdinsurance.com/UAlberta alumni. So what's your name and what's your job?
Hi, I'm Laurie Wang, and I'm Director of Marketing and Communications for the University of Alberta's Faculty of Rehabilitation Medicine.
And today you are with us for a very special reason. Normally, I would have a guest on here talking about their job, talking about their career path, but these are not normal times that we are living in. So you're going to talk to us today about the pain and pleasure of working from home. Why are you such a good candidate to talk about working from home?
Well, I was joking last week that I'm the self-proclaimed work from home queen, because I worked for a company remotely back in 2005 before it was cool to work from home, and also at my own job, right? Even just since 8 years ago, I've been working 3 days a week, and then the other times are at home, so I can have some time with my family as well. So things were kind of a little bit more set up already for myself. So I had some, nice tips for my team. So that's how it started.
And we are both working from home, as is almost every U of A employee, and probably many people listening to this podcast today, which is why we're doing it. So, do you want to just start right off with what some good tips are for people working at home and how they can adjust?
Sure. So the first one is to have a morning routine. So get up at the same time, and I would even say do your hair, some makeup, and get dressed. So what's funny is just last week I was in a video meet and with a bunch of different people from work, and somebody commented and said, "What? You're wearing makeup?" And I was telling them that that's just my way of, self-care and mental health, just to feel like I'm getting up, I'm actually going somewhere, even though I'm not physically going anywhere, but I'm ready and mentally ready to focus and be at work, quote unquote.
Yeah, I think for me, and I don't know how you think about this, I'm trying to separate what my work week is like and what my weekend could be like. And so if I can do a different routine, then that helps with that.
Yes, for sure. I also have 3 children. So I try to make it that the weekdays are looking like weekdays, and then Saturdays are more like, you can hang out in your pajamas a little bit more. You can have a slower morning. Whereas the Monday to Friday, I mean, now we're kind of in a weird time because it's technically spring break, but there's more of a routine in the morning for them for breakfast, for myself as well. And we're actually like getting up and getting ready for something.
So it's mental health, obviously very important, and routine helps with that.
Yeah, yeah. And I found that the other tip that I had was set up your workstation. So use the same space every day. So make this place your sanctuary and office space to work and focus. So I've always already had like a space, which is my office space. That's where I go to do my focused work. So that's actually also my space for working from home as well. So, for example, like say when the kids are asleep too in the evenings, this is before we had, we're all working from home. Before that, I would also already have this space where I would have to do, hunker down and write. And that's where I feel like I'm actually focused versus say, like if I had my computer just wandering around chasing after the children, that's a little bit different. So always have this. I found that having the same space where you feel like that's where you're going to focus and work, it's helpful. It's just like when we go into the office, right? Our brain actually feels like, oh, this is the time to work and be with colleagues.
Yeah, it helps prevent distractions because you settle into a space.
Yes, yes. And it's, yeah, less distracting. And also, I mean, obviously, it would be great if it was ergonomic, but that's like later on to the next step, right? So,
Well, my challenge right now is that my wife started working at home a little bit before me, so she claimed the office. So now I'm working at a kitchen table right now. There's just not enough
yeah,
desks to go around, but
yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, the kitchen table is still good as long as
yeah.
that's what you're going to kind of commit that space to, right? Like during that time. Obviously, I mean, you're going to eat later, but just during like the 8 to 4, that's your space. Go back to the same space every day. I feel like that's always helpful for just us to adjust mentally.
Yeah, I've tried to do that as well. How are you finding it with kids when your kids are home and you're trying to work at home?
Yeah. So the kid thing. There's a few things. So I have 3 kids. I call them my 3 little monsters. They are 8, 5, and 2. And then my husband's actually a healthcare worker. So it's just me. So I got to work from home and I got to kind of handle the children. The good thing I have to say again, they're pretty good in the sense that we tend to have structure. Last week, though, because of all the changes and everything and school closures, like I said, you know what, we're going to have lots of grace. We're going to give ourselves a break. I mean, everybody's saying, like, oh, let's have a schedule, let's homeschool, and they need to learn. And I said, I was like, I'm going to give myself a break. We're going to adjust, take some time. But I do, so, for example, I taught my daughter what the definition of survival mode means. Like things like that where we're a little bit giving ourselves some time, whatever that pace is, right? This week's spring break, so I'm giving them a little bit more space about that too, but we do have our quiet time. So we had this even before all of this went, all the quote unquote shutting down happened. um, so after lunch they have quiet time. So my toddler is sleeping, he naps. My 8-year-old is doing Kumon right now, and my 5-year-old is also doing Kumon. But it can look like anything. Like they have a time and space away from each other too, because we're at a point where we are kind of we see each other so much that you need a break. So the eldest will do some journaling or coloring on her own, and um, also the middle child, Gideon, he'll also be, he can play on his own for a bit too. So I found that you do need a little bit of that in the beginning. I'm still obviously like there's times where there's a learning time, there's some free play time, but it's up to each family. I know that also next week we're going to be doing more like Google Class from school. So I'm also just being very flexible at the same time and forgiving, not on them, but also on myself. I think that for moms and parents, it's a huge adjustment. So, when we talk, it's like, we do what we can, and we have to also be gracious to ourselves and our children and each other.
I think that's really good advice, especially in the social media age where you can go on and I mean, I don't have kids, but I see those schedules everywhere that sort of like this is the incredibly structured day for my kid. And I kind of feel like that it's nice if you can do it, but we are in unprecedented times and it's okay to, as you said, take some grace, have some grace. I think that's really perfect, just what people need.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I think structure and schedule is there if it's helpful to you. It's not there to give you more pressure. And that's the same with productivity at work right now. Like, I think it's great to have, okay, so one of my we can go back to the tips, but one of them is like to have deadlines and to kind of have an idea of what you want to do and set them for your task list. But I've said to my team too, like, productivity and being able to do something is there if it's helpful for you to feel like you're contributing, but don't use it as a way don't let it be a pressure to you, right? So for example, this last week we did a media avail, and it was on mental health apps that are helpful during this time with COVID-19. And we did it remotely. And after that, our team actually felt so good. Like, oh, we can get through this. We have ways of doing things remotely. But if that were more of like a pressure on everybody else to do that too, that is not what the point is, right? It is to feel like you're productive in a way that you're contributing, but not in a way that not to have these deadlines if it's just pressure on you to feel like, and it's just insanity, right? So yeah, grace is always really good.
Yeah, I think I like this point about deadlines as well, is that if it helps you, go for it. But one thing that we say a lot on this podcast, which is kind of, I think, a funny thing to say, even because it's a careers podcast, is that you are not your job. Like your job is something that you do. And I think in these times especially, you need to remember that, yeah, maybe it's okay if it takes you some time to adjust to working from home. Maybe if you don't get some things done at the same pace as you normally would, that's okay. Maybe your mind is focused. Maybe you need to take more breaks. I think that's okay. And I think, you should talk to your supervisor if that's something that you need more of. And hopefully your supervisor's understanding. Mine is very, so there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a challenge. And I think it calls for a time where you have to reflect on yourself as a person and a worker and how those things are going to intersect in this moment.
Yeah, and I think that also it's great as colleagues to have. So another thing is to have check-ins. Like this is the whole we're all being gracious to one another, and one of the things is like in the morning, it's nice to just have a check-in, right? Like have a hi, I'm here, guys, and you're still talking to each other as colleagues, and even having virtual coffees with each other. I think that's also part of it too, is that you're still part of a team where you feel like there's community. We're here for each other. And another one was it's good to also say bye at the end of the day and also log off because you're separating work from life as well, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's something important too that I hadn't really thought of. It's important to be like, well, this is the end of my day and this is how I'm logging off.
Yes, and give yourself a break, as we already talked about, but also even like lunch hour, like I think that it's good for people to unplug. Like my team, I always say, at lunch hour, wherever that is, they can go out for a walk or have their lunch with their kids or something. Like it's still good to, because I think that what happens with work from home, I don't know about you, and especially in communications for us, it can like be nonstop, right? Like communications during crisis doesn't slow down, it actually ramps up.
Yeah.
So I always say like during the lunch hour or during your regular breaks to actually like log off, unplug, come back. You actually come back even more productive at that point. And just what I said before about like saying bye at the end of the day, logging off, and then I actually go and do something with the kids outside or with some, you know what I mean, when I'm off work, when I've logged off, so that I can have that mental break as well. That has been very helpful for us. I think also the other thing is, there are some more for the ones that are moms and dads. I would say like your meetings or that are more or the more focused times, try to book them around times where there's naps. I know it's easier said than done. or when the kids are actually on a more, focused work. Or, I mean, again, if they're watching a movie or something, that's okay because we're at a time where we need to, be okay with those type of things and not be, and be accepting. And then that's when you kind of have to have your important meeting with your boss. Or right now, when you're, recording a podcast, that's a good time to book those things.
I think also, as a person who does not have kids, it's really important that I be, and people like me, be understanding of that fact. I had a meeting with someone where their young child had a meltdown in the middle of it.
And that's okay. It's if anything, it kind of gives you a look into each of your colleagues' worlds, right?
Yeah.
Like I actually really enjoyed when I was in we were in a video meeting with like 10 other people, and I enjoyed seeing somebody's dog, right? Or somebody came in and we just say hi, and I think that it actually kind of builds some community because we get an idea of what we get an idea of what their houses look like, and we get an idea of what their world outside of work looks like. I think this is also a time to send some encouragement. So our faculty last week, our dean sent out a first day of spring thing where we were encouraged to either write something encouraging on the Facebook post, a comment, or to send a note. And I think this is the time where we should also be checking in, or if we did some great work, like, you're doing a podcast, like people are still working, like, to really pump up the encouragement at this time, because I think that that's a part that people are needing, that they know that they're appreciated, that the work they do is not going unnoticed, because it's easier to go unnoticed right now with everybody not seeing each other, right? So I encourage everybody to even think about some people and write them a note to appreciate them, or people on your team to appreciate them.
That's really good too. I hadn't even thought of that, but that makes so much sense, right? You're not there to just say to someone, "Hey, good job on that." And a lot of the work is going to be seemingly invisible right now, unless you see it. Whereas if you were in the office, you'd see it more clearly.
Yeah, and on a more like work productivity note, I know that we all want to also be like actually working as a team. I would say, we have a document together where we've written down all the things that we can do remotely, and we're also brainstorming as a team, like what are some things that we could even think about outside the box now, right? Like, could we be doing, like, what are people needing? Like, could we be doing some hosting something where people can join and learn about how to we're in for physical therapy, for example, like maybe someone can host something where they're showing some stretches to do at work, right? Just little things where we can think a little bit more outside the box, and also write down the things that you can do remotely so that you don't feel like you're trying to, prove yourself, but that you have those tasks on there too. And I think that that's also helpful from a mental perspective, that like we can get through this right now. We do contribute, and we are part of a larger community where everybody's playing a part in it.
Very wise. You're really killing it on this tips. One thing I have a question though for you, and I think you specifically could answer. What's the transition like going back to work? I mean, this is probably apparent for anyone who's had worked from home from a long time, but you definitely have. So what's it like to go from working home to back to the office?
I think that, for us, it's a little different because, okay, so when I was working remotely back in 2005, for a few years there, it was actually interesting because I worked with people who weren't even, like, I've never met them. Like, I've only met them online. And then we went to a conference, which is not recommended right now. But we went to a conference and we got to know each other. And it was definitely a little different because you're kind of adjusting to, like, the personalities from face-to-face versus video. So I think one of the things I noticed is that some people might be different video-wise and in person. They're not used to the technology, or they're not used to, some people are more introverted in real life, and then on video they're like talking a lot more, right? Like there's just different things that we don't know yet. And so that's another part that I noticed when you go back, or well, for me it was like 3 days and I'm off and I'm back. So like now at U of A. So it's a little, there's not a ton of difference. Like I try to have my in-person meetings all on the same day so that I can, have time off where I'm working, and then I have like getting focused work done, and then I have the important meetings done. So that was another part that I noticed. But also that there's also different parts of personalities that come out. Some people are very, they're more chatty via text, or some people are more chatty via in person, but then they won't really talk much via text. So then that's when that might be someone that would be good for more of a video chat. So there's just different, I found that different personalities actually come out differently online as well. So we always expect the same personality to be consistent, but it's different, right? And as somebody who's married to an introvert, it's a very interesting thing because there's people who will come out a little bit more via text for sure, and it's actually kind of cool. So.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Does your team keep like a group text? Do you guys have like a whole like chat?
Yeah, so we've always had our little our hangout chat that we always use. I mean, and it's also used for like fun articles. Sometimes you need like a baby Yoda meme to kind of cheer you up
every day.
That's right. So we use it for that. We've already had that before. And then when things came up with my team, even when I was away on Thursdays and Fridays, they would definitely text or call me if something was more urgent as well. And then we do for ours in the morning, we do the check-in in the morning. Good morning. How was your day? That sort of thing. We try to do a video chat probably once every 2 days to kind of have our normal meeting, but also to just do a check-in and discuss some of the tasks or any questions that come up. So we're finding that that's really helpful too. And again, it's around the times that work for the team as well. I'd also say that I think it's a time where it's okay for us to rant a little, cry a little, pray more. Last week we had, I was with another meeting with all my colleagues, and some people were emotional. And I think that that's a great thing. If anything, it's actually opened us up as a community even more to one another, not just as colleagues, but as teams and as friends. So I said as I said in my tweet, like, it's okay right now to rant, swear, pray, cry, eat lots of chocolate, like whatever, we're gonna get through this together. And I just want to commend those who are actually, staying home and playing their role. Like, even if you don't feel like you're playing your role, it's huge because, again, I'm married to someone in healthcare. I have friends who are pregnant and waiting for their deliveries. I have friends who are, need blood transfusions, need to go have chronic diseases. And this is where we need to continue to support our healthcare workers and systems so that they can get the treatment they need when they need it.
Absolutely.
As well. Not just the COVID patients, but the other people who also need urgent treatment. So this is a community effort. And so I just want to commend everybody who's doing their best to work from home, take care of their kids, all the chaos that's going on. I think that also at University of Alberta, we've come together pretty well. Yeah, I've seen communities come together during crisis, and I see opportunity in crisis too, where people are becoming innovative, creative, compassionate, and that is I think it's a time to be encouraging. In case it's helpful to, I think that it's good for us to also enjoy things that we normally enjoy. So, for example, last week there was a Mulan by ColourPop collection, and it was great because I was like, okay, there's an eyeshadow palette. No one's going to see me, but I'm going to have nice eyes for my online meetings. And my friends and I went and bought it. And I think that that's okay at this time because sometimes, life, the things you still enjoy, life has to go on still, right? And we're going to get through this. I know that it seems very chaotic right now, and it is very serious, but we're going to get through it. And I think it's okay to enjoy eyeshadow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Spoken like someone who definitely works in communications for a living and knows how to craft good messages. Thank you so much, Laurie, for coming on and talking to us. I think it's important.
Thanks so much, Matt.
Thanks for listening to this special episode of What the Job. I want to remind you that you can still use U Alberta Switchboard to connect with your alumni community. Switchboard is an easy-to-use, free service where alumni can post requests or offers. It's a great place to just give or receive advice, even in these difficult times, perhaps even especially. Check it out at uab.ca/sboard. That's it for What the Job. I'm Matt Ray. Thanks for listening.